Hello, and welcome to How to Create a Collaborative Adobe Facility webcast. Over the past few years, Adobe has gained a tremendous amount of traction as the premier editor. In fact, and this is pretty cool, at Sundance last month, 51 films used Premiere Pro as their preferred editing software. That's a 143% increase from 2015 alone. In addition, Deadpool has shattered dozens of box office records, and it just so happens to be edited on Premiere. As most of you may know, Adobe's innovation has only been matched by their responsiveness to their user base. A common request that I've heard for a while is, we need project sharing. As the Adobe user base grows and larger facilities adopt Adobe, the ability for a tighter level of collaboration is required. Shouting from your edit bay for someone to close the project so you can use the project is not a tight level of collaboration, nor is constantly importing and exporting project files. I'm happy to say that this, ladies and gentlemen, is no longer the case. Today, we're going to touch base with 3 technology partners of Keycode Media to discuss the current status of Adobe project sharing and collaboration. Stay tuned, because after that, I'll be putting together the pieces and answering your questions. You can tweet us questions anytime during the presentation using hashtag Adobe Collaboration. First up is Van Bediet from Adobe. Van will give you an overview on what collaboration within Adobe Premiere looks like using the Adobe Anywhere technology. With that, take it away, Van.
Thanks, Michael. Excited to have the opportunity to present today and share with everyone the most recent updates around the Adobe Anywhere platform. Today, we're specifically going to focus on the collaboration-only version of Adobe Anywhere, which gives us shared projects or project sharing, multiple editors working together in the same project at the same time. With content velocity growing at such an incredible rate, more media companies are facing demand to deliver more content than ever to fill new outlets and distribution channels, but often not given more time to help produce that content, so efficiency is really key. It's common to task 2, 4, 6, 10 editors to work on a project, but that can introduce new complexities in managing versions and iterations in this multi-user workgroup environment. Let's talk about how Adobe Anywhere is positioned as a great solution for these challenges. Quickly walking through my topology, we're very excited to have fantastic partners such as Quantum and CatDV to bring you this presentation today. On the left, I've got my Quantum media storage, and I've got Mac or PC, Premiere or Prelude clients directly connected into that Quantum storage. I've got my CatDV asset management deployed. There's an integrated panel that opens right inside the application to search CatDV, find your assets, bring them right into a project without ever having to leave the application. Now, I use the term project, but in Anywhere we actually use the term production. The production is essentially a superset of a project. It allows some advanced features such as access control. So through username and password, I can control permissions to productions. It's got some advanced features around versioning and history that I'll walk through in the demo. The collaboration version of Adobe Anywhere is very simple to deploy. Keycode has a ton of experience with Adobe Anywhere and is a great resource to go to for questions. Let's go ahead and jump into Premiere Pro, and we'll walk through some of these features. So here we are inside Premiere Pro CC 2015. This is the same version of Premiere Pro I would use on a local project. However, now I'm in a shared Anywhere production. This is a multi-user collaborative environment. One of the things we really focused on is making this a simple, easy learning curve for anybody that's new to the platform. Down at the bottom of my production here, you'll see 2 new indicators. One says Get Latest Changes, and the other says Share My Changes. Get Latest Changes will be illuminated anytime anyone else in the production has introduced changes. Maybe they've ingested some new clips, they've done some color correction or added effects, they've created a new sequence, or perhaps just a new version of a sequence. I can go ahead and hit Get Changes anytime I want. It doesn't automatically do it and interrupt my work. I can do it at my convenience. Share Changes will be illuminated anytime I've made changes to the sequence on my side. So if I go ahead and just grab a clip and drag it just to see what this looks like, you're going to see the Share Changes light be illuminated, and I can go ahead and publish those changes into the production at any time. One of the great things about Anywhere is that saving happens automatically. There's no Command S, there's no autosave dialog that pops up. Everything I'm doing in the timeline is automatically being saved as I work. Think of working in a timeline in Anywhere as if you're writing an email that you haven't sent yet. When I'm ready to share changes, think of that as sending that email. I'm now ready to publish it and make it part of the production. Just to see what that looks like, let's go ahead and hit share changes. I can add a comment. Check out the latest cut. Go ahead and hit share, and that's now checked into the production. Other users will now have the Get Changes light illuminated, and when they're ready, they can go ahead and update to get the latest version of my cut. You can organize things any way you like within the production. Bins, folders, any structure that you're used to will be the same within a shared anywhere production. Just to show what it looks like when other users have made changes, I'm going to go to a second system I have here in the background as part of this production, and I'm going to throw a few clips into a timeline. Let's do that real quick. I'm going to call it new sequence, and I'm going to go ahead and share the changes from that sequence. Now you might have noticed my Get Changes light just illuminated. It lets me know the other user had just created something new into the production, and I'm going to go ahead and hit refresh. As you do this, you'll see a quick update, and I now have a new sequence, it's even called new sequence, that's been added here into my production. It's visually also telling me by the yellow plus icon here that this is a new asset inside my production. That's how simple it is to exchange sequences back and forth. Again, we're sharing the same source material, the same dailies or clips, but we're creating our own sequences. We can organize them in whatever folder structure we like. Let's talk about a couple more advanced features within Anywhere to help us manage versions. If you're used to working in a multi-user environment, you most likely are dividing up work by act, scene, segment, reel, clip, promo, however you might segregate the type of content you're working on. It's the same concept within an Anywhere environment. However, we didn't want to introduce the concept of bin locking. We wanted editors focused on the quiz. I'm going to go ahead and load up this new sequence that we added here. And let's just go make a simple trim at the end of the cut so that we've introduced a change. Visually over here, I can see the white icon with the pencil telling me that I've edited this sequence. I also see my share changes indicator is illuminated. On the second machine, I'm going to go ahead and add a title to this same sequence, and I'm going to have it cover the duration of the cut. I'll go ahead and share those changes so that I published that new change with the title into the production. Now you'll notice I have a red indicator here as well, so it tells me I've edited this sequence. Visually, I can also see somebody else edited this sequence. Let's take a look at how Anywhere handles this situation. As I go ahead and get latest changes, I'll be introduced with a dialog box that helps me manage versions and lets me know a conflict has been introduced. I have a few options here. I can keep my version, I can take the shared version the other user introduced, or here, as I discussed version management, I now have an option for iteration. I can make a copy of this sequence, call it .1, maybe put my initials, today's date, however I want to enumerate it, however I want to organize it. I now have the option to create iterations and versions of the same sequence that multiple people have worked on. I'm going to go ahead and just accept the changes from the other user, go ahead and say resolve, and it's quickly going to tell me that all conflicts have been resolved. I now have the title in this sequence that was updated by the other user, and you can see how quickly that updated and we're collaborating together. Now in that dialog box I had a couple different options, and you might wonder what the impact would have been if I'd chosen a different option. If I go over to the media browser, I can see my Anywhere production. I'm going to go ahead and click on it to expand it. There's all of the assets within my production. As I mentioned, everything I'm doing is being saved, and every time I share, it's checked into the production. So I have all of the assets here. Here's that new sequence we just created. I can also look at a production history by right-clicking and showing when changes were introduced, who introduced them, and when they were pushed into the production. One of my favorite features is Toggle Production History slider. If I click on this, I'm introduced with this slider here. Remember, we just introduced this new sequence here. Let's drag the slider back a couple minutes and watch that sequence disappear, because now I'm at a point in the production in the history before that sequence was introduced. There's a title here at the bottom. Let's go way down. Before that title was introduced, there I had some different bin organization. I have the entire history of the production right here at my fingertips. Any of these versions can simply be restored with a right click and brought back into the production and live and back online. So the entire history, everything automatically saved into this production, and I can quickly access it all through the media browser. Back here in my production, I'm all the way up to date. Everything's been shared and updated between users. We've showed the ability to share changes of a cut I made into the production, accept changes that other users have made with a simple click, and we're collaborating and working on the same media at the same time in a multi-user anywhere production. We've showed the production history that lets us view the entire history of everything that's been saved into the production, roll back to any versions through the entire history of the production, and simply restore them with a right click. That's how simple it is to collaborate within Adobe Anywhere. We're very excited about this platform. I really appreciate the time to talk to you today. I'm looking forward to the Q&A, and I'm going to go ahead and send it back to Michael. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Van. Remember to stick with us until the very end to get your questions answered from Van and the rest of the guests joining us today. Use hashtag Adobe Collaboration to ask questions. Next up is Will McGrath from Quantum. He'll be covering a massively important tech decision when designing your collaborative workflow with your Adobe creatives: shared storage. Choosing the right or wrong shared storage can quickly shape your entire experience with collaborative Adobe editing, let alone editing alone. Quantum has recently released their latest Adobe-ready shared storage solution, Excelis, featuring the battle-tested StoreNext platform. Take it away, Will.
My name is Will McGrath, and I work with our technology partners here at Quantum within our scale-out storage division. Perhaps the most overlooked component when we look at enabling a shared or collaborative Adobe Premiere, Adobe editing type of environment is the whole storage infrastructure. Whether your creatives are using shared content through some sort of media asset management system or just using shared folder access, when you begin looking at collaboration, you have to consider the different types of storage that's available to you, not just a simple choice. The first way to look at some of this storage is to actually look at whether you plan to use direct attached storage, network attached storage, or SAN-based storage. So most of the folks, when they start out, handful of editors will just be using direct attached storage on the Premiere Pro workstations. As they move to more of a collaborative environment, then they actually start looking at how to actually share that storage. SAN-based storage from the likes of EMC, Hitachi, HP gives you better, easier management because it's all kind of consolidated within a single SAN array. But each Adobe user gets their own slice of that SAN. So it helps you with things like backup and recovery and making sure files aren't inadvertently lost. But it doesn't help on its own with the ability to actually share those files among different users. Similarly, network attached storage can give you a nice collaboration environment with a single folder access for all your creatives. And with proper permissions and user mapping, you can actually allow them to see all their Adobe files and their projects. But you do need something on top of it to actually get better performance than a traditional NAS protocol will allow. So what do you look at then if you actually start looking at collaboration? Well, the key thing is actually considered something called a clustered clustered SAN or clustered NAS-based solution. And typically that's all kind of formed with some type of clustered file system that allows you to share that content between different creative types, people using Adobe Premiere, people that are using other tools in their workflow. It minimizes file transfers because you're not basically copying files from your network attached from your direct attached storage over to the SAN and potentially misplacing files or overwriting files. Or if your private workstation goes down, it doesn't have that same metric of losing files more easily if you don't have a full backup. But it actually helps on that. It also helps on the collaboration side because most of these solutions provide the ability to actually share cross-platform. So if you have your Adobe Premiere users using Windows or Mac, you might have some other users, maybe Flame users using Linux. Might have creative types using Prelude for logging, compositors, animators with After Effects. So this allows you to actually have all those users see the same storage. It provides easier admin because that's all being administered from a central place. And the key piece also is performance. You can actually scale out the most clustered NAS solutions by aggregating controller nodes and spindles to increase the performance for handling multiple streams of video. There are a number of different types of storage out there. It's not all created equal. When we talk about primary storage, I mentioned clustered NAS and clustered SAN types of solutions. But it's not only just a matter of actually choosing the best performing storage at the cheapest price, but there's characteristics of the storage itself. For instance, when you're looking at archive storage, there are a number of different technologies out there. LTO tape, for instance, is tried and true for archives. It's still the cheapest per terabyte cost at a penny and a half a gigabyte. And the introduction of LTO7 late last year increases a single LTO cartridge from 2.5 terabytes to 6 terabytes. LTO storage can last for about 30 years of preservation. Not so that gives you a lot longer life cycle than, say, disk storage, which you actually have to replace disks about every 4 or 5 years. So different types of characteristics for actually long-term storage versus high-performance primary storage. Similarly, object storage is an upcoming new technology that's finding its way into most IT environments. Tends to lend itself to faster nearline collections of storage for things that are growing into the petabyte range. Has a lot of the same semantics as cloud-based storage, with the ability to actually make 3 copies of a file and spread it out across multiple storage nodes for greater resiliency. But it won't have the same cost dynamics as, say, LTO storage. So it'll be a little bit more expensive, but also quicker access to your content than waiting for a tape to load and pull back that content. And of course, there's the public cloud, which, due to the continued costs being squeezed out of places like Amazon and Google, the ability to actually have ubiquity access to those clouds also make it for it as a nice long tier term storage medium. Just have to actually work through things like security challenges and upload challenges as well. So, but it could be a viable archive solution. But the key is to actually choose the storage solution that really balances where in the life cycle that content fits. High performance content, whether it's editing environments using Premiere Pro, whether it's transcoding environments, then the primary storage should be clustered NAS or clustered SAN. If you're looking at long-term archives, there's a number of different venues that vehicles we actually just talked about. Another key consideration is actually choose the storage that actually works with the media asset management vendor that you are closely working with. So if you're choosing a MAM, it's important to actually have that tied directly to the tiered storage archive. A lot of vendors will actually do the API integration with a particular vendor's API calls to actually give you better integration when combining that environment. So it's a key question to ask as you're considering this. Adobe Premiere, you heard Van talk already. You talked mostly about the collaboration type of environment within Adobe Anywhere. But the key point for this slide is really just to show what is needed within an Adobe Anywhere, which is Adobe's approach for actually having collaborative workflows. You do need a media asset management platform as well as some type of shared storage environment. The basic components of that environment, helps you with the collaboration piece so that you can actually have high performance access to that storage pipeline. If you don't need the remote access, as Van hinted, you don't really necessarily need the Mercury streaming engine aspect of it if you're just doing a local collaboration-based environment. And I think that's what he mostly talked about during his part of the presentation. Key things to consider when you're actually looking at your primary storage is what types of formats are you actually working with. 4K actually introduces a new knothole that is helping to reinvigorate certain types of storage environments, especially if you're looking at using things like raw content versus proxy-based workflows. Adobe's unique than some other competitive editing environments where it allows you to actually work with the raw 4K or 6K content if you're using, say, Red Raw environments. But you need to choose a storage environment that can actually handle that type of content flow. This is especially true in working with DPX image sequence files, which are kind of frame as file types of formats where you need a real high performance, low latency type of storage. One thing we've seen is that with certain environments, the latency introduced with NAS, Ethernet-based solutions can sometimes struggle with drop frames. This is mainly when you get to the higher content workflows, when you're looking at things like 2K or 4K uncompressed formats. So it's one consideration that you have to actually look at when if you are considering working with 4K. Just want to talk briefly around what Quantum provides in this environment for Adobe workflows. We have our Pro Solutions platform. Pro Solutions is a package of complete storage solutions really designed for media entertainment workflows. range from our low-cost Pro Foundation that actually allows you to step into a shared workflow at a very modest cost, to things like an optimized 4K ready environment, which uses SSDs for metadata for actually having high performance shared environments. We also have workgroup solutions. We have a pro production solution that includes everything that your production environment may need, including an attached archive to actually allow you to move content off your primary storage off to your secondary storage. With this solution, you can kind of see that Quantum provides a whole set of workflow environments, not only the high performance storage that's available to you, but also different types of archive tiers, whether that be tape libraries, object storage, or cloud. We also have introduced in late November generation 3 of our workflow storage worker node. It's basically something called Excelis. It controls all the shared access to your storage, permissions, locking, access to the primary files, as well as providing a data move to move content off of your production SAN or NAS over to a tiered environment or an archive environment. Excelis is the first product from Quantum that actually introduces a standard SMB and NFS stack to the SAN-based file system that StorNext provides, as well as a StorNext proprietary distributed LAN file system. So it gives you a much more of a converged architecture for actually accessing your content, whether you have editors that are using the high performance SAN for 4K. You might have some review folks that actually review and approval folks that might just only need basic access to it, so they can use just standard SMB CIFS. Here's just a quick architecture of a collaboration only anywhere environment. You can see the MAM is CatDV that's kind of controlling the search and of those assets, whether they sit in primary storage or wherever they sit in the environment. And then for our portion of it, the right-hand side is where the Quantum piece comes in. We have a StorNext metadata appliance that actually controls the shared storage and a high-performance disk. On top of it, you can actually add an archive tier optionally to actually move your production projects, your Adobe production projects over off the primary tier of storage over to an archive tier. And we have a number of different choices for that. We have our AEL archives, which is an LTO tape archive solution. We have our Lattice object storage, which provides you with cloud-based, private cloud-based object access to your content as a tier to your primary storage. And then we have our QCloud offering, which is a public cloud-based offering based on Amazon AWS. We both have the QCloud Archive, which is based on AWS S3, as well as QCloud Vault, which is based on Amazon Glacier. So it gives you a full, complete environment for actually handling your Adobe Anywhere collaboration. If you are building an environment with a media asset management, CatDV is one of the vendors that has actually done a lot of integration with StorNext. We have over 30 MAM vendors that have integrated with StorNext, but CatDV is one of the ones that were early to the game in working with our APIs. They developed an archive plugin, StorNext archive plugin, that can store Adobe clips or productions through StorNext to a tiered storage like a LTO tape. This is just a screenshot of the CatDV GUI, and you can see that you can actually retrieve, you can archive to StorNext, you can retrieve from StorNext, and you can get a status. So a simple archive, a simple plugin that allows you to get the status of where in the workflow you're actually moving content off of your primary storage off to the archive, and it keeps track of that for you so you don't lose your content. Allows you to search on that content as well and pull back your high-res content from the archive back to primary disk if you need to remonetize it or re-edit it. The beauty is because StorNext provides a single web services API for whether you're moving content to tape or to Lattice private cloud or to public cloud, AWS public cloud, it's a single API call. So CatDV integration allows you to get benefits of not just using tape, but both private cloud and public cloud as options for your long-term storage. I surveyed my professional services team who have deployed a number of Adobe Anywhere deployments, and they had a couple of recommendations as they walk through this. The first thing is in Adobe Premiere environment, the block sizes for file transfers are much more smaller, much more efficient than say if you were moving from a Final Cut Pro environment. So this gives you a lot of benefits in actually tuning this environment to actually be better performing. We've worked pretty closely with Adobe to come up with some best practices for how to tune your Premiere Pro environment for shared workflows. Secondly, when we're working with Adobe to create a white paper on describing how to move from, say, an XA and Final Cut environment to Premiere, we noticed that the Adobe Premiere Pro, the media browser panel, that's the hover scrub capability that allows you to move through a clip, can inadvertently pull content back from the archive. So if you have an environment where you have your archive policies on a directory that is your primary editing environment, and you've moved that content off to the archive, if you use the hover scrub panel, sometimes it'll pull that content back. So the key reminder here is, you may want to have a separate work in progress directory where you're actually finishing your content from the directory that actually goes to the archive. Just a simple recommendation. And then finally, in a collaboration environment, this is not as an issue because the Adobe Anywhere After Effects users are actually connected directly to the shared storage. But if you're using an environment which is actually using the Adobe Anywhere remote browsing, remote editing capability, it's recommended that the After Effects users actually directly connect to the SAN, not through the Mercury playback engine. So to kind of conclude, number of takeaways: work with a storage vendor that has experience with Adobe collaborative workflows. We've worked with Adobe. We were one of the first 3 storage vendors to certify with Anywhere, and our SAN is being used within Adobe's Hamburg, Germany development environment. Also, judiciously choose the right type of storage for the life cycle. A lot of vendors will sell, NAS, SAN for the primary storage, but also sell a flavor of NAS for the archive that may or may not meet the needs of what you're looking for in an archive. If you're looking for a 10-year retention cycle, choosing NAS as an archive tier may not be the best choice. And then finally, it's not really simply about working with your Adobe Creatives for access to the storage, but work with a MAM vendor that actually has robust integration with the storage that you've chosen, especially for the archive. So it'll allow you to actually invest the time to actually move that content over the various tiers and have a user interface that can actually facilitate that and search for that content. So with that, I'll turn that back over to Michael from KeyCode, and thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Will. I think we can all agree we're amassing more data, but we rarely look for ways to improve finding that data. Asset management by OS is not the most efficient technique out there. What if we could incorporate more powerful ways of finding these shots, sound effects, and stills from inside Premiere? Well, we happen to have a solution for that. Shane Scarborough, our very own Cat TV guru, will give you a brief outline of how Adobe-based productions are utilizing asset management. Take it away, Shane.
Thank you, Michael. Hey folks, this is Shane Scarborough, Solutions Architect and Cat TV Certified Technician with KeyCode Media. Today, I want to show you how we can work collaboratively with Adobe's Premiere and Cat DV. So let's jump right into it. What we're looking at here is Cat DV's full client or thick client software. A quick overview, we can see that I have my group, I have my catalog that I've created where my clips are going to be ingested into. I've got a file system down here, and one thing I have here is a Send to Premiere button. Basically, we can send from Cat DV into CS6, CC 2014, as well as CC 2015. CC 2016 is coming soon. So the first thing I want to do is let's go ahead and create a sequence. So I'm going to create a cut down for Michael. And I want to add footage to that cut down, so let's go ahead and navigate to one of my favorites, which is Poppy Hill. And I'm going to throw footage in there. And of course, nothing's complete without a scene from Star Wars, so I will navigate to that. And I can start building. And we'll do one last shot. Let's navigate to the Batman trailer here. Now I can go in, out. I can also make this a marker. I can make that a range marker and say Batman, or whatever I want the description to be. And you can see I've created a marker there as well, and I can drag that into my timeline. So I've dragged a few clips into my timeline. I'm going to go ahead and click out on that. I'm going to save that. And as we can see here, I have my cut down for Michael. And I want to get that into Premiere and have him start editing that so I can get my piece out and mastered. So I can literally drag and drop that into my Send to Premiere CC 2015. If I open up Premiere, all my clips come in, and as we can see, I have my sequence called Cut Down for Michael. I can double click on that sequence, and there are all my clips. Also, the markers, I believe it was on the Batman trailer, will come through with appropriate description as well. So another way we can get media into Premiere with CatTV is with CatTV's advanced panel for Premiere Creative Cloud, working with both 2014 and 2015 versions of Creative Cloud and 2016 version coming soon. So what we do is we merely navigate to our window in Creative Cloud. We go to Extensions, we click on CatTV, we log in with our CatTV credentials, and as you can see, I have all my footage. I can navigate to my catalog. I only have one catalog, but if you had multiple, you could navigate to that. So let's search for a file. I can search for Star Wars, and my file comes up. I can double click on this, and double clicking will give me access to all of my panels from CatTV. It gives me the ability to play. So I can scrub through that as well. One of the things I can also do is add metadata to this. So I can cancel out of that. I can go edit, and let's say this is a movie. I can add that metadata by clicking save. And literally what that does is that saves that metadata back into CatTV database. So now that's accessible by anyone using CatTV system. I can also do one of two things. I can import the original media, or I can import the proxy. Well, let's import the proxy. So I can navigate down here now, and in my project, I see that the file has come in. I can take that and I can drag that into a sequence. Let's make the timeline a little larger. And as you can see, let's just resize this. I've pulled in my proxy file with timecode burn-in, and I can reconform it later on using the original files by merely import original media and swapping that out. I hope you've enjoyed these demos with CatDV and Adobe's Premiere. Happy editing.
Thank you very much, Shane. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Over the past half hour or so, we've gone through a lot of different tech discussions on Adobe. We've tried to simplify it somewhat, talking about storage, talking about asset management, and of course the Adobe portion. Although we've simplified it, I want to ensure that all of you know that it can get more complicated than just these components. And that's where folks like myself and the team at KeyCode Media come into play. So we implore you to get in touch with us so we can work with you to design the right facility. Now, we've had a lot of questions come on via hashtag Adobe Collaboration during this webcast. And a few of them I can answer right off the bat before we get to the rest of the people on the discussion. One of the questions was, I saw a slide that said there's After Effects support. Currently, there isn't After Effects support with Adobe anywhere, whether you're in the remote version or the local collaboration version. So that's important to know. We also want to make sure that you keep tweeting to Adobe Collaboration so we can answer those questions live on the air currently. So we have Matt, our esteemed social marketing guru over here. Matt, if you can throw up our first question. First question is, if sharing media, is sharing media not possible due to connection speed? Can you just share the project in the same way or relink each time? And I think for that question, we're going to go over to Van, who's in our Google Hangout, to answer that question. Van, can you give us some insight?
Sure, making sure you can hear me okay. Currently, if you're using an Anywhere production, you do have to have a connection to the server. We're certainly exploring ways to be offline and sort of resync The only other workflow that's possible today would be to convert the production to a Premiere project, which is part of the functionality. You could take that project offline, go ahead and work on it, come back and resync that into the Anywhere production just by importing the work you've done through the media browser. So a fairly easy way to do that, and look for more updates in the future.
Thanks, Van. I think there's an awesome feature that I'm not sure got covered a lot in the briefness of the webinar, is the ability with Adobe Anywhere to convert a production to a project. So you can localize the media locally, edit if you wanted to be on a plane somewhere editing, and then push that back to a production, so you can deal with editing local and remote with the media. Okay. Matt, can we have our second question? Excellent. In CatDV, can you create your own metadata columns? Very important when you're searching for data. Shane, can you address the question?
Sure, Michael. Yes, you actually can create your own metadata columns. You can actually customize those via user, and you can sort through those as you wish.
Excellent, excellent. We find that a lot of clients we work with, each client has their own particular needs and their own pain points. And so each client traditionally likes their own columns defined so they can find their own media. Matt, can we throw up another question? What kind of mixed NLEs environments, Avid and Adobe file system, and let me see if I can reread that again. What of mixed NLE environments, Avid and Adobe file system and storage of choice? Well, if I understand the question correctly, you're asking what kind of storage subsystems do we like for Avid and Premiere and Final Cut 10? Well, obviously for Adobe is pretty agnostic. If I can answer for Van, it's pretty agnostic. You can run it on just about anything. We talk about Adobe Anywhere. Adobe Anywhere is pretty liberal with the storage subsystems that you would put with it. Obviously, we love StoreNext. Like I said, it's battle tested. But we've also seen other SAN and NAS manufacturers support Adobe as well. When we look at Avid, obviously Avid really prefers to use their own storage, the ISIS system, whether it be the 1000 or the 5500, et cetera. And when we look at Final Cut 10, that gets to be a little different just because of the way it reads files in advance. So it's best to check with the storage manufacturer du jour that you're looking into to see if they support those NLEs. So next question, Matt. How does Adobe Anywhere work with CatDV? Shane, do you want to tackle that question? Okay, I guess I'll tackle that question. Adobe Anywhere and CatDV is fantastic. Within Adobe Anywhere, or within Premiere, you have panels. I'm sure all of you have used panels before to access third-party tools. CatDV has a panel which you can load inside of Premiere that talks to Adobe Anywhere. That allows you to see all your media, that allows you to see all your clips, and then bring them in to your Adobe Anywhere production. So this will be our last question, and that's, will the slides from the presentation be made available, especially the charts? That's a fantastic question. As we try to do here at KeyCode Media, all our webinars and seminars we make as VOD. So later on, all of you will get an email with the link so you can watch this later and scrutinize all of our speeds and feeds. I want to thank all of you for tuning in today. I want to thank everyone who contributed to today's webcast. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm on Twitter @MichaelKamas, or you can track us down on the web at keycodemedia.com, and we'll see you next time.